Trisargo Misha Damnasvena Sada Nirasta Kuhukam Satyam Param Dhimahi. O my Lord, Shri Krishna, son of Vasudeva.
O my Lord, Shri Krishna, son of Vasudeva.
O all-pervading personality of Godhead.
O all-pervading personality of God.
I offer my respectful obeisances unto you.
I offer my respectful obeisances unto you.
I meditate upon Lord Shri Krishna because he is the absolute truth.
I meditate upon Lord Shri Krishna because he is the absolute truth.
And the primeval cause of all causes.
The primeval cause of all causes.
Of the creation, sustenance, and destruction of the manifested universes. He is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations. And he is independent because there is no other cause beyond him. It is he only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahmaji, the original living being. By him, even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion. As one is bewildered by the illusory representations of water seen on fire or land seen on water. Only because of him do the material universes, temporarily manifested by the reactions of the three modes of nature, appear factual although they are unreal. I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Shri Krishna, who is eternally existent in the transcendental abode, which is forever free from the illusory representations of the material world. I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth. Dharma Pujita Kaitravudra Paramo Nirmatsanam Satam Vedyam Vastavam Atra Vastu Shivadam Tapa Trayon Mulanam Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Krite Kimva Purir Ishvara Sadyo Hridi Avarudite Tra Kriti Bihi Sususubhistakshana. Completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated. This Bhagavata Purana propounds the highest truth, which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart. The highest truth is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all. Such truth uproots the threefold miseries. This beautiful Bhagavatam, compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva in his maturity, is sufficient in itself for God realization. What is the need of any other scripture?
What is the need of any other scripture?
As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam, by this culture of knowledge, the Supreme Lord is established within his heart. Nigama kalpatarur galitam phalam Sukhamukad amrita dravya samyutam Pibata bhagavatam rasam alayam Mahur aho rasika bhuvi bhavakaha. O expert and thoughtful men, relish Srimad Bhagavatam, the mature fruit of the desire tree of Vedic literatures. It emanated from the lips of Sri Sukadeva Goswami. Therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful, although its nectarian juice was already relishable for all, including liberated souls. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 10, text number 6. Nada yogya daya klesa Daiva bhutatma hetava Ajata satrav Satrava-bhavam
Ajata-satrava abhavam
Jantu nam rajnikarichit.
Jantu nama rajani.
Because the kings having no enemy, the living beings were not at any time disturbed by mental agonies, diseases, or excessive heat or cold. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. To be non-violent to human beings and to be a killer or enemy of the poor animals is Satan's philosophy. In this age, there is enmity toward poor animals, and therefore the poor creatures are always anxious. The reaction of the poor animals is being forced on human society, and therefore there is always the strain of cold or hot war between men, individually, collectively, or nationally. At the time of Maharaj Yudhisthira, there were no different nations, although there were different subordinate states. The whole world was united, and the supreme head, being a trained king like Yudhisthira, kept all the inhabitants free from anxiety, diseases, and excessive heat and cold. They were not only economically well-to-do, but also physically fit and undisturbed by supernatural power, by enmity from other living beings, and by disturbance of bodily and mental agonies. There is a proverb in Bengali that a bad king spoils the kingdom and a bad wife spoils the family. This truth is applicable here also, because the king was pious and obedient to the Lord and sages, because he was no one's enemy, and because he was a recognized agent of the Lord, and therefore protected by him. All the citizens under the king's protection were, so to speak, directly protected by the Lord and his authorized agents. Unless one is pious and recognized by the Lord, he cannot make others happy who are under his care. There is full cooperation between man and God and man and nature, and the conscious cooperation between man and God and man and nature, as exemplified by King Yudhisthira, can bring about happiness, peace, and prosperity in the world. The attitude of exploiting one another, the custom of the day, will only bring misery. Haribol, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Because the kings, having no enemy, the living beings, were not at any time disturbed by mental agonies, diseases, or excessive heat or cold. Well, this is very interesting, because today there is a lot of anxiety, stress, or in other words, Trump derangement syndrome. Did you know about that disease? Yeah. TDS. Trump derangement syndrome. Why is that? Because Trump has some enemies, and they go crazy all the time because he seems to be getting away with things that they can't stomach. And also, as Prabhupada says, to be non-violent to human beings and to be a killer or enemy of the poor animals is Satan's philosophy. So, what happens when people want to pretend to be non-violent to human beings, but yet they're permitting all kinds of violence to the animals? Prabhupada says, in this age there's enmity toward poor animals, and therefore the poor creatures are always anxious. The reaction of the poor animals is being forced on human society, and therefore there's always the strain of cold or hot war between men, individually, collectively, or nationally. There you are. Karmic reaction for making the animals suffer. Therefore in society there's so much stress and threat of war and so forth. Now, do people see this? No. They don't see the correlation between unnecessarily making animals suffer and killing them and eating them and Cold War, hot war, war in the streets of the United States, war between the United States and other countries, and so forth. So, there is an impossible situation with no solution, because the people cannot believe that there's any correlation between those two things. But we know that there is. So if we don't do those things, then we can avoid most unnecessary problems in society. In fact, all the problems of society are unnecessary. They're only due to people's forgetfulness of Krishna, and they're performing what's called panchasuna, 5 kinds of unwitting sinful activities. What are the 5 kinds of unwitting sinful activities? They are, one is just moving around, like driving a car or a bicycle or walking, and by doing that, we kill hundreds and thousands and millions of living entities. You can fit 10 million living entities on the tip of a pin. Yeah, they're microbes. So imagine how many living entities are in the road when you're driving, or in your house. So the second way of unwitting killing and sinful activity is house chores. Washing things, flushing the toilet, and vacuuming, all kinds of things. Every time you're killing hundreds, thousands, and millions of living entities. And then also there's business. Doing business, you kill a lot of living entities. What if you're in the construction business? You know how many living entities you kill by destroying a building and then rebuilding a building? Or any kind of business, you're killing hundreds and millions and trillions of living entities. And then in politics, you kill a lot of living entities, and people also. And then also, besides politics, there is administration. And whenever you administer something, you're always killing living entities. Like, let's say you have rats in your house, so you call the exterminator. Let's say you have cockroaches in your house, you call the exterminator, or in your building. And so these are, it's called panchasuna. These are the 5 types of unwitting commission or committing sinful activities. Now, if we are doing things for sense gratification, doing all those, and at the same time engage in all those activities, we get the reaction. If we're only engaging in devotional service, in other words, everything we do is directed toward pleasing Krishna, and we have no desire for sense gratification, we have no desire for the fruit of activity, of action, we're always offering everything to Krishna, then we're not responsible for all that killing. But if we're engaged in sense gratification, then all that heavy killing will weigh on us. Okay, so now there's individual responsibility, and then there's also collective responsibility. Like the king or the ruler, if he permits the slaughter of animals in order to eat them, he gets 1/6 of the sinful activity. And so forth. So it's very dangerous to be a leader and be an illusion, because you're actually digging your own grave by doing that. So, however, Maharaj Yudhisthira was a pious king. He was a devotee, not just pious, he was actually a devotee, and a elevated devotee. And therefore, during his time, there were no nations. There were subordinate states. But they were all united, because when you perform the Ashvamedha sacrifice, it's a way of subjugating, or let's say subordinating, all different areas of the world. And with the help of his brothers, Maharaj Yudhisthira was able to perform the horse sacrifice and was recognized by all people on the earth planet. Therefore, he was, at that time, the whole earth planet was united into one nation. So the whole world was united, and the supreme head being a trained king like Yudhisthira. So this was originally practiced also in monarchy. When a son was born to a king and queen, right from birth that son was trained to become a king. So he was, first of all, a Kshatriya, so he had to have Kshatriya training. And not only that, he had to have spiritual training also, so that by the time his father was older and ready to retire, the boy could take over. Now the boy is a mature man. He could take over the kingdom and manage it properly, because right from birth he was trained to do that. Trained in austerity, cleanliness, truthfulness, and mercifulness. So the whole world was united, and the supreme head, being a trained king like Yudhisthira, kept all the inhabitants free from anxiety, diseases, and excessive heat and cold. Well, how do you do that? You organize massive yagyas, Sankirtan yagya, and massive distribution of prasadam, and worship, and opulent worship of the deity. And this way, there's a cooperation between the Krishna and his subordinate devatas and human beings. They were not only economically well-to-do, but also physically fit and undisturbed by supernatural power. In other words, there was there's three types of miseries. Adhyatmika, adhibodhika, adhidaivika especially was not felt at all, was not experienced, because Krishna is the controller of nature. And if people are living Krishna-conscious lives, then you don't have unnecessary adhidevika, cataclysmic events caused by the devas. And they were physically fit and undisturbed by supernatural power, by enmity from other living beings, and by disturbance of bodily and mental agonies. Therefore, there's a real benefit to have a devotee king. There's a proverb in Bengali that a bad king spoils the kingdom and a bad wife spoils the family. Well, that's absolutely true. This truth is applicable here also, because the king was pious and obedient to the Lord and sages, because he was no one's enemy, and because he was recognized agent of the Lord and therefore protected by the Lord. All the citizens under the king's protection were, so to speak, directly protected by the Lord and his authorized agents. So this is real administration. This is real management. Whether you're managing a family or a temple or a whole nation. So, unless one is pious and recognized by the Lord, he cannot make others happy who are under his care. There is full cooperation between man and God and man and nature. And this conscious cooperation between man and God and man and nature, as exemplified by King Yudhisthira, can bring about happiness, peace, and prosperity in the world. The attitude of exploiting one another, the custom of the day, will only bring misery. Well, what are we going to do about this? That's the question. We're getting all this amazing knowledge, but what are we going to do about it? Well, the only thing you can do about it that's practical is perform Harinam Sankirtan and massive book distribution and prasadam distribution. That's the way you bring about a major change in society. You don't change society by staying at home, sleeping in, and taking it easy breezy. Yeah, you don't, that's not the way to change society. You want to change society, you have to go out and do massive Sankirtan book distribution, prasadam distribution, and be with the people, because the people are suffering. They're suffering not only because they've been misled and think that the goal of life is sense gratification. In fact, when we go out, we actually kill. What do we kill? We kill people's desire for sense gratification. We don't kill the people. We kill their desire for sense gratification. That is the strategy of Krishna consciousness. Because if they lose the desire for sense gratification, then their spiritual life begins. But is it an easy thing to convince people to give up sense gratification? No, it's not easy. Prabhupada said to make a devotee, you have to spend 100 gallons of blood. That's how difficult it is to convince people to give up sense gratification. But it is possible. Prabhupada did it. He did it all over the world. In every continent of this world he went. And the same process worked everywhere. That means it's perfectly scientific, proven by Rupa Goswami in the Nectar of Devotion, and demonstrated by Srila Prabhupada. So, if we give up the attitude of exploiting one another, which only brings misery, then by the example of simple living, high thinking, not being attached to becoming the next Jeff Bezos, but rather becoming the next person like Prabhupada. And we'll never be equal to Prabhupada, but we can be like Prabhupada in being completely free of sense gratification and working only for the welfare of everyone. One time, one GBC man was asked by Prabhupada to give a lecture. It's a very long time ago. I think it was 1973, 74. And I was there, and the GBC man said, and Krishna consciousness is not welfare work. And Prabhupada stopped him. He said, no, Krishna consciousness is the best welfare work. Well, what the devotee meant was it's not mundane welfare work, and that is true. But actually, Krishna consciousness is the best welfare work, because you help a person go back to Godhead, there's no better welfare than that, right? You solve all their problems. So we should be very concerned about preaching, and preaching by example, and preaching by Sankirtan, book distribution, and prasadam distribution, and having festivals. This is the way to reach the people. Yesterday some man came here in the afternoon, he's a real estate agent, and he wanted to put up some poster, and I happened to be here. So I started talking to this man, and he's a Iranian Muslim who came to the United States 43 years ago when he was a kid. And he's pretty successful. And I was telling him, yeah, we organized a lot of festivals, and I showed him, the little card for the Veg Fest. And he saw the cow. He said, oh, I've been to one of your festivals. It was at in Bellevue. He said, I live in Bellevue, and I went to the Crossroads Park, and I saw this cow. Is it? This is what happens. And now, why did he walk in the temple? He didn't come here to come to the temple, but he saw this a big building, and maybe I can put a poster for. He's selling an apartment across the street. What do you say? And then all of a sudden, he didn't realize he actually knows us, because he came to Flavors of India, Rath Yatra Festival, you see. So unless we do these festivals, and the food truck is going out, now we're going to buy our second food truck, we have the money to do it, and keep doing these outreach programs, that's the way to touch the public, right? And it creates goodwill. And eventually, people will become much more interested in Krishna consciousness, because we see we're doing only good things. We're not doing anything bad. We're only doing good things. Okay, thank you very much. no questions, no answers. So, we'll go out. Huh?
About Sankirtan, what we are planning, but I heard that there is some limitation now, we cannot do this month. So we have to work on a regular Sankirtan, may not be Mahanarati.
Okay, there's so many extraordinary. No, actually, we could do it. The way to do it is have simultaneously 10 Sankirtans going on, not more than 10 people, in different parts of the city. You're not allowed now to, I mean, you could do it and get away with it, but you might be criticized for it, to go down with, 100, 200 people. But you can have 10 people.
Yeah, but regular we do in university districts, we have 8, 10 who are in group.
Yeah, well, you can do that. You can do that.
Regular we can do it that. But
Yeah.
Mahanarati, we have 200 people. I don't
Well, we'll have to wait till that restriction is lifted.
Yeah,
It's not that we're not going to do it. We are going to do it.
Yeah.
We're going to wait. But this weekend for Gaur Purnima, instead of having one Sankirtan party, we should have 10. And make a map. Now you get a map of Seattle, and we'll look at 10 different neighborhoods where we can go and do Sankirtan. There's like Ballard and Bellevue and Seattle downtown, Seattle University District, and North, what's it called? North Gate or North Shoreline. All those places. We should have small party go to every one of those places.
Downtown you can have like 2, 3 in downtown.
You can have 2, 3, but they shouldn't meet though.
Yeah, they have to have different routes.
Yeah, you can have Seattle Center. You can have here, there. You have the
Last convent.
So how are you going to handle the
Union Lake or whatever that near
Salt Lake.
South Lake Union. Yeah, and then we could do Capitol Hill, downtown Seattle. Yeah. Okay, so you, Captain, you're going to organize this. Get a map of Seattle.
Yeah, but we only do this weekend tomorrow.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
We need a prasadam also distributed.
yeah.
So-
We'll have it. We always have 600 burritos.
So we can distribute 200, 100, 100, and then maybe.
Yeah, or cookies.